Yes, SEC Media Days last 4 days, but here at Mark Rogers TV, we string it out to 5 or 6. Got to cover all these coaches. There's 14 of them. Like to get to Mississippi State and Dan Mullen, and the best way to do that is to talk to Justin Sutton from For Whom the Cowbell Tolls. Justin, it's great to flag you down to talk some Dan Mullen at the podium to get us kind of a taste of football season back in our mouths.
I don't know about saying flag and Dan Mullen at the same time right now, but that's all right, Mark. Good to be here with you.
I did say that, didn't I?
You did. That's all right. That's a whole nother issue for something else one day.
And we don't edit these things, and we don't do any take two. So I'm on record. There it is. So I think he probably made about as politically correct a statement as he could, and left it at that from what I could see. So we'll talk. We'll go from one end of the spectrum of serious social issue to shoes. Flag, as Dan would say. So does he have a little penchant for doing this?
You know, he does. He had the special Starkville shoes last year that he wore on when they had game day and everybody in town. You know, it's what coaches have to do. You're out there trying to impress 17, 18-year-old kids, and if you can wear shoes that impress them, you're going to wear shoes that impress them. If running around in a clown suit is what teenagers wanted to see, if that's what got five-star players, you see coaches running around in a clown suit, because in college football, just about everything, especially the way you dress, the way you talk, your Twitter feed, all of that comes around recruiting, and they have to do it. It's part of the lifeblood of what they do. Like it or not, shoes look terrible, really. But, hey, if Dan likes them and he gets kids on board, then I like them too, I guess.
All right. At least I'm not the only one. All right, Justin, you're on my side with that one. That's a good one. And when I see Nick Saban doing it, then I'll know that new levels have been reached, and that's really what you need to do regardless of where you are. All right, let's talk about Dak Prescott. Nothing new here. He's the best quarterback in the league, most believe. Mm-hmm. I've seen a couple top 5 lists, one by yours truly that may have him at number 2, if you can believe that, but we'll not argue that point right now. He had a few issues against some SEC teams, better defenses. Just your thoughts about Dak, where he stands. Mullen was asked all sorts of things in regards to protecting him since he's the franchise versus cutting him loose, and what he can do better that kept him from taking that plunge into the NFL.
Yeah, I think we look at Dak Prescott. He's the period, while a lot of other guys are question marks in the SEC. Jeremy Johnson should be a good quarterback. Chad Kelly, you think he's going to be a good quarterback. So there's going to be some good quarterbacks developed in the SEC this year. Dak Prescott has a little bit of advantage and having been a starter for about a year and a half over these guys. The big thing for Dak Prescott, and they've talked about this through the spring, improving accuracy, getting his timing a little bit better, getting his touch a little bit better on deep throws. He had a few things to tune up and refine and clean up. And if he comes into the fall and he's done that, his accuracy is up another 5-6 points. If he's got a little bit better touch on some of those back corner fades, he kind of became enamored with those late in the season, trying to hit De'Runnya Wilson, led to some interceptions in the end zone that cost him against Alabama. If he's got some of that cleaned up and his touch is a little bit better, the sky's the limit for what Dak Prescott wants to do. All that saying, protecting Dak Prescott is going to be huge. The offensive line lost 3 talented players, Dylan Day, Ben Beckwith, Blaine Clausell. It looks like there's people there to replace them, but you don't know till they're on the field. The question mark for the Bulldogs is going to be that offensive line. If they can gel, you got top Jico Galli, Martinez Rankin coming in. If he can crack the starting lineup, Devin Desper, who was a high school, playing the All-Star All-American game, if he's ready to go on that offensive line, Jamal Claiborne, if he's ready to go, this offensive line may not miss a beat. In theory, these guys all had a lot higher stars coming in than the guys that replaced him. Ben Beckwith would have been a no-star if that designation had existed. So in theory, these guys have higher pedigree coming in. If Mullen's really good, as they say, he doesn't recruit well, he just trains them up well. Well, if he's got some pretty solid recruits and he's trained them up well, they should be ready to step in. They're going to get tested quickly week 2 against LSU, though.
Okay, we'll look out for that. Looking at last season again and spinning it forward, just about anybody in the country can look at the downside or the bright side. Of course, Mullen's going to gravitate toward the good side, and there's a lot of good there to take from. So it seemed to me as though he was obviously taking advantage of what this program not necessarily just accomplished, but kind of the taste they had in their mouths of playing in championship level competition and also reaching number 1 for 5 weeks.
Yeah, there's no way to replicate that feel. Mississippi State had never been there, and if you want to be the best, you got to learn how to play with that pressure. And I think if you look back at 2014, Mississippi State played a little tight after getting to number 1. Kentucky, their first game at number 1, they seemed a little tight in that game. The Arkansas game, extremely close. It took an interception in the end zone by Will Redmond to save the game. They played tight. They started off tight against Alabama, very conservative. And once they got down, got hit in the mouth in that Alabama game, I think you saw Mississippi State react, and they went after it more. Dan Mullen mentioned that, growing up as a coach, learning how to handle that pressure on his end as a number 1 team in the country. I think if the Bulldogs can find their way back there, then it's going to take some early season big wins, LSU, Auburn, A&M. If they can find their way back into that top 5, I think this team will have the poise that they did not have last year just because they were there just so recently in 2014. And that could be key because their last 4 games were huge. At Missouri, hosting Alabama, at Arkansas, hosting Ole Miss. If they want to get into the playoff, they got to come in there with maybe 1 loss total and get through that undefeated.
Hey, Justin, you mentioned that one name, Will Redmond. We've known about him for a long time, especially you have known that he's been that kind of player that could have tasted and moved on to the NFL. But I think he's moving on into that range where if he has the kind of season as expected, he will be on the national radar. He's that kind of player. I did want to, before we let you go, get your reaction to being picked last in the SEC West. When you look at the division, somebody's got to be picked last,
right,
and that team's going to be a really good football team, basically a top 25 caliber team. So it's got to be somebody. So it's, despite having the best quarterback in the league back, it's Mississippi State.
Yeah, here's the thing. The SEC West, I think all 7 teams go bowling again. I think they all have 7 wins. It's going to be tough. What I ask myself, though, is who comes into the season showing that they've leapfrogged somebody? A&M's got John Chavis now to run the defense, but they still got the same players. Are they going to really be that much better? A&M, to me, seems like they're the likely pick to be number 7. Arkansas, who knows where those guys are going to go? They win the West, I'm not going to be shocked. They finish 7th, I'm not going to be shocked. I kind of look at ranges. If I was a voter, I would have put the Bulldogs somewhere either between first, which I think may be a little bit of a stretch if you want to just go ahead and anoint them number 1, because they haven't done it. They did show they had some chinks in the armor down the stretch last year, but I don't think you can put Mississippi State anywhere realistically lower than 4th in the SEC. I think, LSU, huge quarterback issues. They play the Tigers early. If they get a head-to-head victory there, that's going to carry a lot of weight in the SEC standings. Ole Miss, we don't know what they have yet in Chad Kelly. If Chad Kelly is the real deal, Ole Miss is going to have a great season. And Mississippi State fans may not want to hear that, but they will. But I just think the Bulldogs there, I think I put them in the top 4, but it just shows you how crazy it was. I was on a radio show the other day, and I said, look, they're going to get picked 7th, but somebody's going to pick them to win the West, and somebody's going to pick them to win the SEC, and those things happen. And that's the West. Put them in a hat, draw them out. Who knows how it's going to shake out. 50-something days, Mark. I can't wait till we get there.
I know it. You won't be shocked, but I will be shocked if Arkansas wins the West. And that's all due respect to the Hogs. I think they're much improved. I think that was obvious based on the late season run, but I think some people are putting a little bit too much on beating up an LSU team without a quarterback and beating up Ole Miss when they were beat up physically, and then Texas was lousy. Let's get that through our heads. They were like 3-5 in the Big 12, so whatever it was, something in the 500 range, 4-6, whatever it was in the Big 12. So Arkansas, I'm going to have to get sold on. I think Texas A&M is the biggest wild card in the entire conference because they've got freshmen all over playing defense last year, and the freshman to sophomore jump could be huge. And with Chavis in place, we know they can sling it all over the yard. And Kyle Allen's got those 5 or 6 or 7 really good starts under his belt now. So I think they could take a jump, but we have yet to see the fruition of all these top 5 recruiting classes yet at College Station. All right, Justin Sutton of For Whom the Cowbell Tolls on the SB Nation platform for Mississippi State Athletics. Justin, it's always good to catch up with you and get the insight.
Absolutely, bud. Don't be a stranger.